My name is Tomas, and this is my presentation titled A Case Against Biological and Chemical Warfare. So first off, what is biological and chemical warfare? Well, biological warfare involves the use of viruses, bacteria, or toxins that are weaponized to spread disease among a population. These can include, but are not limited to, anthrax, which is a bacterial infection that can cause death, as well as botulinum toxin, which causes muscle paralysis and can be weaponized. And even in some cases, the plague can be used as an example of a biological weapon. Chemical warfare uses toxic chemicals to inflict injury or death. Some examples of these are sarin, which is one of the most toxic and fast-acting nerve agents that causes death very quickly, as well as chlorine gas, which was used in World War I and causes irritation in the throat, eyes, and the lungs. In some cases, it can be deadly when inhaled in large amounts. Now, all of these bioweapons and chemical weapons are considered weapons of mass destruction. And they're actually banned under international law, starting with the Geneva Protocol in 1925, shortly following the conclusion of World War I, which sought to ban the use of biowarfare during wartime. And the Chemical Weapons Convention, which came along later in 1993, sought to ban production and storage of biological or chemical weapons. Next, we have the key arguments against the use of biological and chemical warfare. Number one, they cause a high level of human and animal suffering. Number two, there are long-term health and environmental impacts associated with the use of biological and chemical weapons. And lastly, we have that there's a high risk of misuse, accidents, and escalation involving the use of biological and chemical warfare. First, let's start off with the high level of human and animal suffering. Oftentimes, victims suffer slow, painful deaths or lifelong disabilities as a result to exposure to these chemicals or biological weapons. And oftentimes, there are unintended targets such as civilians and animals. Some examples of this are mustard gas in World War I, which inflicted much damage to crops, livestock, horses that were not intended targets of the chemical use. And another example is Iraq's biological weapons program, which inflicted damage on many civilians during the 1980s and 1990s. In my opinion, these violate basic human rights and humanitarian principles. Next, we have the long-term health and environmental impacts as a result of biological and chemical warfare. So oftentimes there is environmental damage associated with the use of these weapons, which can cause soil, air, and water contamination. And a lot of times there are residual health effects, which include cancer, birth defects, or PTSD from the stress and anxiety caused by a biological attack. And these biological weapons are difficult or even impossible to contain once they're released. One example is the use of Agent Orange in the Vietnam War by the US, which was used to clear out areas of dense vegetation, and it killed off crops to reduce cover for the enemy and to make travel easier in the war zone. And this chemical leached into the soil and water sources and is still causing issues today, resulting in health problems that are spanning generations in Vietnam. Lastly, we have the high risk of misuse, accidents, and escalation that is possible when using biological or chemical warfare. These agents and biological viruses are easy to misuse or accidentally release from labs. Terrorist groups or rogue nations can exploit them and even attack labs that hold harmful pathogens during times of war. And a lot of times when you have something like a biological weapon used from one nation to another, there's going to be some sort of retaliation, and this can lead to a full-scale war. All of this leads to destabilization of international trust and peace efforts. So in conclusion, my stance is that biological and chemical weapons are inhumane, extremely volatile, and environmentally unsafe. My supporting arguments include that there are unjustifiable human and animal suffering associated with these weapons, long-term health impacts and lasting environmental harm as a result of this type of warfare, and global instability and high risk of misuse are some of the things that come along with biological warfare. In my opinion, we must continue to ban and condemn the use of these weapons. Thank you so much for watching. And next we have my works cited page.